Hello YouTube, this is Sam Gerrans from Qur'anite.com. Today is Wednesday the 9th of February 2022 and I'm working my way through the last of these surahs through to the end of the Qur'an. We began at Surah 50 and today we're going to look at Surah 97. Now this is a surah about which the traditionalist has a very particular opinion, and it affects the way that Muslims engage with their religious year. This isn't, as I've said many times, the point of this this research, which I've been doing, my own due diligence on the Qur'an, is not to cause problems for the traditionalists necessarily. It's nothing to do with that for me. It is more to do with the fact that if you're going to claim that you're following a book which itself claims to be complete and from God and that God will preserve it, then what follows from that must really follow from that and not make some sort of quantum leap into something else. And that is what happens. Now, the traditionalist, and when I say the traditionalist, what I'm really talking about is our friend, Brother Walid, has a very good, in fact I'll put a link to his channel down below. He has a better formulation for this. He calls these people the hadithans or the hadithists. And it's not about name calling, but I mean we do need to call things by their proper name, and people tend to be known by whatever it is that you follow. So if you follow the tenets of Marxism, then you are a Marxist, correct? If you follow the tenets of, whatever else it might be, L. Ron Hubbard, then you are a Scientologist. Obviously, in both cases, other people come along later and sort of change this. You've got neo-Marxism, and you've got kind of neo-Scientologism. If you look at it with the chapters at the top of this now, this is just a normal thing. But even so, there are words that you can use. We are human beings. We're meant to use words to call things by their proper names. And on that basis, then a man is really known by what he follows. Now, you could, despite what the Westerners claim about themselves, some claim to be Christians and some claim to believe in this ephemeral thing called democracy and so on. But really, if you're going to call them what they actually are, they're materialists. That's what they are. They believe in the material world and nothing beyond that. By the same token, or not by the same token, but at least on as part of the same analysis, you could say about and it's not true of all those who have claimed Islam or all those who have followed it, because although this isn't really well understood in the West, Islam is a very broad church. And so, but to kind of narrow it down, what's being imported into the West at the moment, in my view at least, this is my personal view, I would say that this is something that's been doctored, put together later on. If I was going to ask to sort of point where this has really come from, this new type of so-called, what I call brand Islam, I would begin my researches with the Western intelligence agencies, because in my experience, these people never fight an enemy they didn't create. I've never known the British. When I say the British, I don't really mean British people. I'm British. I'm certainly not part of the ruling elite. But I've never known the organizations that really lie atop what you might call the Anglo-American establishment. I've never known them fight an enemy they didn't either create or heavily influence. All that to say, in my view, I think that Islam, whatever it was at some point, was deteriorating under the same influences that destroyed the West of materialism. And as you see, I'm getting a bit digression, but I'll come back to the point that there are a lot of sort of so-called modernizing influences in what used to be the Islamic world. And what they're trying to do is kind of marry an understanding of Islam to what's known, what I would call scientism. Because they look at the West, they think, the West is really successful. And it is in a very materialistic sort of way. And they think, well, we need some of that. And they look at the stuff that the West makes and they think this is science, but it isn't science. It's really just a form of pragmatism. It's a form of engineering. It's not that there are scientists, sitting there cogitating, coming up with these, breaking through to the secrets of the universe and then applying these and pop, out comes an iPhone. No. Scientists, so-called, now are basically functionaries working for, they're working for particular types of organizations funded usually by the Rockefellers, or at least funded perhaps is a bit of a strong term. The funding will be directed by particular groups with an agenda, with a plan. They have a plan, and that plan is predicated upon a materialist worldview, at least so far as affects the profane. The profane would be you and me and everyone we know. They have a plan. They're working towards it. Anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that the religion, as presented in the West of Islam, is really it's really a Trojan horse, to be perfectly honest, used to sort of lubricate the process of importation of a lot of people into the West, and to give them some sort of cover so that they can't be attacked, at least for now. They will be attacked in the future, but right now they're attacking other people, me, people like me, white men. We are the target right now. But in the future, if there's going to be a future, and when they've got rid of all of the people like me, they'll move on to the next one. As I've said before, this system has no favourites, absolutely none. Now, to get to the point of what I'm talking about here, Layl al-Qadr, this has an emotional attachment to a lot of people who were schooled in what I would personally say was a process of Islam in a process of deterioration. That would be my personal view. But leaving all that to one side now, I'm going to get into what I say this means, and it's not just what I say it means. Going back to my opening statement, if you're going to claim that the Qur'an is from God, that it is preserved, and that it is it's coherent, it's consistent, and that God is going to protect it, then certain things follow from that. They actually follow from that. It doesn't mean that you can now, zoom over here, and now you're talking about something completely different. If you are going to be talking about something something distinct, then it has to comport with this foundational basis. Otherwise, you're basically digging up your own foundation, the foundation upon which you claim to stand. There isn't really any way out of this. Now, obviously, it's possible to claim mysticism and subjective feelings and so on. And as I quite often say, I don't actually have anything against mysticism at all, except that you can't prove anything by it. You or I could have a deep and very meaningful mystical experience, but you can't do anything with it. You can't express it to somebody else. I mean, possibly by means of poetry, that you could, if you were a very great artist, it might be possible to convey some portion of what you'd experienced, but you can't convey the experience, and you certainly can't build any sort of legislative processes upon it that aren't completely arbitrary. All right. What I'm going to get into now is some of it's quite complex, and I'm not going to be able to explain it all in a YouTube video. The point of my videos has been to basically provide an on-ramp for my actual work. In fact, I can show you here if this thing works properly. My actual work is this. It's the Qur'an, a complete revelation, which I'm only showing you because we're going to be looking actually at the internet or an online version of this. But this is the hard copy, and everything that we're going to look at is in here. And just to show you how I've laid this out in a way that I would have liked to have found a book that applies some measure of what I would call Western logic. So you have the verse numbers here, the Arabic on the left, the English on the right. page numbers here. These you'll work out. I'm not going to go into those now, but they're just a way of sort of dividing up the Qur'an so you can keep track of what you've been reading at any time. Now, the whole of the Qur'an is here. What we're going to be looking at are the notes. So in the hard copy, you have all of this, and then you have the notes. All of this is at the back. All that to say that you can download the whole of this for free. I'm not here to sell you books. It's not what this is about. And you can see the whole thing online in a way which is much easier to get around, because I understand that all the notes at the back, you have to go backwards and forwards and all of this stuff. And I understand it's not easy. Some things aren't. It's just how it is. But the reason why it's laid out like that is simply because there's no way. I had a hard cut-off point of 1,200 pages, which is the most that you can print in a print-on-demand printer, which I use a print-on-demand printer. No other way of doing it. I haven't got millions of pounds to print up 10,000 books and stuff. No, this is the way I do it, and that's the maximum that you can do. You can't do any more. And so physically it wasn't possible to lay out the book in this way. I get people saying, oh, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Yeah, suggestions. Yeah, I have a lot of them, but it's just, that's the answer. There you are. There is a solution, and the solution is to use reader.qur'anite.com, where all of this, which we're going to look at now, is laid out. You just press a button and it comes down. Not only that, it's easier in the sense that you can get around it. You can navigate very, very quickly. Personally, I don't trust the internet. Personally, I think most of the information that's worth having there is going to disappear. It already is over time. As you can see, I buy books. Over the last few years, I've been quietly buying some really, really, really important books, because I see it that I'm really salvaging what's left of this round of civilization. To be honest, that's how I see things. And I see myself in that context, quite frankly, as a sort of functionary of that broader organic context. Anyway, while I'm on the subject of books, I have my the God Protocol. If I press this button, wrong button, that button, which is exactly the same, all laid out. You can read it all, hard copy, etc. Again, you can download this for free. I just think myself, if you're going to have hard copy, it's a good idea, because the memory hole, our good friend George Soros and the ruling elite and all that, they're gently chipping away at stuff. You see things change. You see it online. You see things change. You can change anything. Personally, I like it to have it in hard copy. And if you haven't got any money, print it off. Keep it at home. That's all I'm saying. That's all there is. Okay. So now we're going to look at this particular surah, and I'm just pulling up here. I'm going to read this Qadr night, as it says on Wikipedia. Wikipedia being the infallible source of truth for all time, is variously rendered in English as the night of decree, night of power, night of value, night of destiny, or night of measures. Is in Islamic belief the night when the Qur'an was first sent down from heaven to the world, and also the night when the first verses of the Qur'an were revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. Now, if you haven't, I have to press another button. If you haven't seen the previous video to Surah 96, I do recommend watching it, because, again, we demonstrate there, this isn't an opinion, this is a fact, that there is absolutely no way that Surah 96, which is claimed by the traditionalists to be the first, or at least the first verses of it, to be the first verses that were ever revealed to Muhammad, we can prove that that's not the case. It's etymologically impossible for that to be the case on the basis of the Quran. It's impossible. And it's not impossible because I say it. It's impossible because the Quran says it. If I think of it, I'll link to that one as well in the link down below. Again, these videos are not for everyone. These are not 5-second videos, or, kind of like what the messenger gives you, take; what the messenger forbids you, leave. And then jumping into the fray at Speaker's Corner at Hyde Park on the basis of this. This is actual analysis, and I absolutely understand that most people are not going to do this. I understand that. And that's why I make long and boring videos. because this isn't for, we live in a world now where it's all about numbers. People think that the more people who follow one, the more important one is, and all of that. And I understand that people feel that, but that's never been the case historically. It's never been about numbers. It's about quality, not quantity. Always the quantity of follow. It's just how it is. It's always been that way. I can't see it changing, even in the degraded state that we're in now, because those sort of laws are just basically fixed. So we're going to have to go through some information, and even so, I'm not going to give all of it because there isn't time. There just isn't time. And I will show you reader.qur'anite.com, and if you want the rest of it, it's all there. It is something which requires some reading. I'm really only talking here to those, let's say 2,000 or 3,000 people watch each video. I should think it's probably about 5 to 8% of people who will care sufficiently to do this much. And I understand that. That's all. Those are the people that I'm talking to. So please don't come on here and say, why do you make these boring videos? Why do you make these long videos? If you don't get it, it means it's not for you. Okay. So let's just sort of jump in and we'll have a look. So we understand what the traditionalist says this is, and now we're going to explain why on a pantextual basis it really can't possibly be that. So Surah 97. We sent it down on the night of determination. And what will convey to thee what the night of determination is? The night of determination is better than 1,000 months. The angels and the spirit descend therein by the leave of their Lord of every sort of affair. Peace. It is until the emergence of dawn. Now, just before we get into the details of this, you may have not noticed, but this convention and what will convey to thee. Here it says, what will convey to thee what the night of determination is. Just to be clear, this convention, excuse me, I'm just playing with the buttons here, that one. This convention, you find it quite a lot of times in the Qur'an, especially in these between 50 and 114. And the Qur'an will mention something, and then it will say, what will convey to thee what this is? And then it gives the definition, or it talks about it. But one thing is always clear. When it says, what will convey to thee what the, whatever it is, it is in a context, it is in a context in which the recipient of the Qur'an did not know what that was. Close that camera. Is in a context in which the recipient of the Qur'an didn't know what that was, and it's now going to elucidate or explain this matter. Okay, if you go through, you'll find that this is consistently the case. All right, so that's the kind of the background, as it were. Now, what I'm going to do is get into this one. What we're looking at now is reader.qur'anite.com, and if you see these little buttons, these little white buttons here, blue buttons here, if you click them, I'm not sure if the camera's actually catching up with it. Yeah, so I'm closing these two down. Right, you can just get to the notes as simply as this. This is Brother Said Mirza has, bless him, has put this together. I couldn't have done this. And it's part of the Qur'anite site. So if you go to Qur'anite.com, you can just click up and get to this, which is a subdomain of this. So I've got all the notes up there, and I'm only really putting them on there to show you. I don't know that I can read this much off the screen and talk at the same time. So I've printed them off and got these here. So we'll just go through by bits. And I understand a lot of people are going to drop off because it's not very sort of shiny and interesting. But so we sent it down on the night of determination. It, i.e., the Qur'an. Now, for why we know the Qur'an to be the reference, see note 2, 692. So if you go to 692, and you'll find another note there, because the Qur'an it's an interlocking system. The first question here is, what is sent down? Now, the traditionalist asserts that the pronoun object, i.e. it, sent it, that pronoun takes the place of a noun, and here it's it, and it's an object because it's being impacted by a verb, refers to revelation, his view being confirmed as the correct one, albeit for reasons other than those he typically offers. In treating the traditionalist's existing presentation, we must address 44:3-4, where some see a foreshadowing of or reference to what we have here at 37 at chapter 97. So if we just press that, it brings us up to here, which is sort of 44. Hamim, for the meaning of Hamim, all that work has been done. You can find that article 2, or at the back of both books. By the clear writ, we sent it down on a blessed night. We are warning, wherein is separated every wise command by command from us. We are sending. As mercy from thy Lord, he is the hearing, the knowing, Lord of the heavens and the earth and what is between them. If you are certain there is no God save he, he gives life and he gives death, your Lord and the Lord of your fathers of old. The truth is, they are in doubt playing. So watch thou for the day the sky will bring obvious smoke covering mankind. This is a painful punishment. Our Lord, remove thou from us the punishment. We are believers. How should they have the reminder when a clear messenger has come to them? Then they turned away from him and said, one taught and possessed. We indeed remove the punishment a little, you indeed revert. The day we seize with the greatest seizing, we will take retribution. And then it goes into, and we had subjected the people of Pharaoh, and it talks about that. And it goes through various other Pharaoh, the people of Tuba, and then it talks about the tree of Zakum, punishment and warning. Okay, that's really the point that I'm trying to make here. So, in treating the traditionalist existing presentation, we must address 44:3-4, where some see a foreshadowing of or reference to what we have here at chapter 97. Namely Layla al-Qadr. The value of which such people assume to be the night of divine decree in which all affairs are destined for the year ahead, an assumption based entirely on sources other than the Qur'an. For more, see notes below. So what I'm trying to say here is that this is an assumption that verses 44:3-4 read, we sent it down on a blessed night. We are warning, remember, wherein is separated every wise command. Now the context there, verses 44:3-4 read, we sent it down on a blessed night. We are warning, wherein is separated every wise command. Now the context there indisputably treats, at least to some degree, of revelation. So we agree with the traditionalist there. Moreover, we agree with the traditionalist that it is only reasonable that the same is the case here at 97. That which is referenced by it is likewise revelation. So we're agreeing, yes, we agree, it is revelation, and you can prove that it is on the pantextual basis. However, at chapter 44, which we just looked at, the traditionalist tends to concentrate on the sending down of the revelation to Muhammad as a special, private event focused on the Prophet himself, and he leverages and extends that assumption in order to inform the sense of this topic we now wish to address. So what he's saying is that this sending down was a private event to Muhammad, and this is the thing that Muslims get together on, whichever night it is they think it happens, and celebrate, okay? To the extent that the revelation of God reaches those men who are not prophets, God, quote, sent it down to them also, albeit in a general and more diffused sense, a sense which the traditionalist also accepts where it suits him. And it must be this broader, more general sense which is implied at 44:3-4, since the following context, which we just saw, in fact the entire chapter, treats of warning. Okay? That is, the emphasis throughout is not on the private receipt of revelation from God by the prophet, but on the delivery of that revelation to people more generally. If we are to claim a correlation between 44:3-4, which we just looked at, and chapter 97, which we're now looking at, and the traditionalist does precisely that, on the strength of the similarities in their references to God sending down revelation on a particular night, and I certainly accept that correlation, then we should insist upon equivalence between the two segments. So if you're saying source for the goose, it should be source for the gander. If you're going to say, okay, it's being sent down on a night in a particular situation there, it should be the same here. But that's not what they're doing. If receipt of revelation, whether heeded or not, by the generality of man, rather than an initial private receipt by the prophet, be accepted in the first place, or be accepted as operative in the first place. So if you're saying in the first case, which we looked at, 44:3-4, that this being sent down is not just a private affair, this is being sent down as a warning to the generality of men, and in fact the rest of the surah is all about that warning and the consequences thereof, then the same has to be the case here. Otherwise you're just cherry picking. So, if receipt of revelation, whether heeded or not, by the generality of men, rather than an initial private receipt by the prophet, be accepted as operative in the first case, and in the first case I'm talking here about Surah 44, it should be accepted in like manner in the second case also. What I'm saying here in simple language is that if we're saying that it's being sent down in the first case to the generality of mankind, then that's the case here. In the first case, it's in a context of warning, then that should be the case here. That's not what the traditionalist is doing. What the traditionalist is doing is claiming a specialness here, individual specialness for the Prophet Muhammad, and then going to a completely different literature in order to try to back that up. And then he's got people, waiting for this special night in order to get special blessings, Layl al-Qadr, as they've been told that it is, but nobody knows when it is. It could be this one, it could be that one. Which is all fine. People can believe what they like. The problem, as I keep saying with unerring regularity, is that if you're going to claim a book which says that it's from God, preserved, and that it is consistent within itself as your foundation, then what follows from that should follow from that. But what he's doing doesn't follow from that. In fact, what he's doing goes completely against it. Now, if you can hear drilling, it's because we have drilling in our house, and there's nothing I can do about that. So we'll just carry on. So let's go back to this and see where we are. We sent it down on the night of determination. And now we're going to look more at what we mean by night of determination. So the etymological options available to the Arabic qadr, which I translate here as determination, and when we looked at the Wikipedia, the source of all reliable information in the world, it gave various other renderings in English as decree, power, value, destiny, night of measures, which will be more interesting when we complete these notes. We will see that the etymological options available to the Arabic here may be gathered into 5 basic groups. So you've got 5 kind of pools of meaning to draw from. And traditionally, what I call the traditionalist does is he doesn't bother with the Qur'an. He doesn't look for consistency in the Qur'an. He doesn't really, he's not primarily interested in it. It's an adjunct to his religion. That's what it is. He uses it in the same way as the British wrap themselves in the Union Jack, or the Americans wrap themselves in the American flag. It's a symbol. It's a way of arrogating to oneself confirmation or an authority that may or may not exist, but really what you're doing is you're using a symbol as a shortcut to that and to justify what follows without getting into any kind of details on what's really going on, let's just take, for example, the word, un-American. What's un-American? What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. Democrat doesn't mean anything. Progress doesn't mean anything. Most of the words that are used by the new cult don't mean anything except basically they're expressions of a materialist religion. The sort of basic precepts of which have been already agreed upon, and everything else is bent to that end. This is what's going on here too. So let's look at what these options are. You have extent, scope, quantity, amount, scale, rate, measure, number. So that's one kind of group of things that this word could mean. Sum and amount. This is another group of words that this thing could mean. Degree, grade. That's another one. Worth, standing, value, rank. That's another one. And divine decree. Now, my personal opinion, is that the sense of divine decree is a lexical development originating in another place. I think, and you see this quite a lot with the Qur'an, that these later developments were forged in another place and then imported into the Qur'an, and from there they went into the lexicons. And that word did acquire that meaning, but it's only subsequent. That would be my argument. But anyway, let's leave that to one side. It is certainly the case that such a value for qadr occurs nowhere outside the present chapter, even according to the traditionalists' own assessment. All right? What I'm saying here is his value of divine decree, which he applies to this word here, doesn't occur anywhere else. And this is the way that he operates. If you look at what he does, very much like what the Westerners do with their applications of words like democracy and progress and tolerance and all this, it kind of appears, equality is another one they like. It appears to mean something as long as you don't look at any sort of context. If you kind of take your conclusions and throw them at a wall, and then some of it seems to stick to a particular brick. If you look at that brick, just that brick and no other bricks, or at least not much else, it appears to make some sort of sense. But when you look at the whole wall, there's no way this thing can comport with everything that's going on there. It's precisely what the materialist dogma does in the West, and it's in the West. I use the word West in a worldwide sense because it's a worldwide religion now. But this is what the traditionalist is doing here. It's what he's doing. He's saying, qadr, it means this. Well, possibly. You're just looking at that one brick. What about all the other bricks where this word occurs? So it's certainly the case that such a value for qadr occurs nowhere outside the present chapter. You can check this. This is partly why I have this, this online reader.qur'anite.com and my work. I know most people aren't going to check it, but I've made it as easy as it is physically possible to go through, and all the references are there. It's only a matter of pressing a button. Be that as it may, it is certainly the case that a value for qadr occurs nowhere outside the present chapter, even according to the traditionalist's own assessment. In order to find which of the remaining semantic groupings is referenced here, we should look at all remaining instances of qadr in the text. And I list them. There are 4. And we find that 3 of them mean measure in the sense of appraisal or estimation. And they measured not God with the measure due him. In the sole remaining case outside the present chapter, the context is also that of extent or measure, as in the limits of God, 65.1, and waiting term at 65.2. Thus, in all cases outside the present chapter, measure or extent is either the explicit sense, the dominant context, or both. I must therefore assume it to be the sense here also. This, if you don't know me and my work, this is the process. It's called pan-textual analysis. I didn't invent it. It's just a logical application in the context of a book which claims itself to be from God and consistent. And as I said in the last video, I don't even think I'm doing anything particularly new. I think I'm just uncovering stuff that was known previously. And over this period of this project, to which I feel that I'm sort of approaching an end, my abiding sense has been that of of being an archaeologist, of uncovering stuff, of digging up things that were always there but had just been ignored. So that's just on a personal note. Since 691, 22, 74 and 39, 67, the connotation of measure implied is that of appraisal or determination in the sense of evaluation. This is the value I identify and use here. The question remains as to who the active agent is in the determination on such a night, God or man. The traditionalist assumes the former, typically that God is referenced here, seen as establishing his decree on this special night over all the affairs of the coming year. However, this is an assumption, and as I say, an assumption that's drawn from a completely extraneous literature and one which contradicts all the other instances in the Qur'an, and one for which one can point to no explicit Quranic support. The only other place at which the construction night plus definite article plus noun occurs in the Qur'an is at 2:187 on the night of the fast. The active agents, i.e. the doers of the noun value in that case are men. For it is not God who fasts, but men. If we are interested in consistency, and the Qur'an cites consistency in support of its claim to originate with God, we should incline to the view that the operation of al-qadr here pertains likewise primarily to men rather than to God, although naturally in both cases, that of determination as here and of fasting as at 287, God is the ultimate instigator, witness and giver of reward. The above points accepted, the import of this collocation here is that God sent down the Qur'an on the night on which men are or were to make a determination, evaluation or assessment. But a determination, evaluation or assessment of what? The key to this question is grasped by understanding the full sense of the word salam as found at 97.5, which we'll get to shortly, as well as the points covered in the remainder of the notes to this chapter. However, in summary, the believers are to form a determination of the hearers to decide whether they be friends, believers, rejectors, ignorant ones, etc. Now, if you dig back a long way, my work feels like many moons ago, I have a video, I think it's called Archetypes or something like that. The Quran contains archetypes. Al-mu'minun, al-kafirun, alladhina kafiru, alladhina amanu. These are archetypes. If you get to be as old as I am, I'm 54, basically you've seen everything. Not that you've seen actually everything, but you've seen something like everything. You've certainly seen somebody like everyone. There are only a certain amount of people in the world, a certain amount of types. And once you've lived a bit, you've met them all. And the Quran tells you precisely what they are. It tells you who they are, what traits they've got, how to spot them, what you should do with them. That's what it's giving you. It's giving you all this stuff. So, in summary, the believers are to form a determination of the hearers, which I've just listed, based on the hearer's own determination of that portion of the Quran recited to them by the believers. Now, why am I going on about all of this? Because if you look at my work, for the few people who will go through my work on the mysterious letters, it's quite clear that there are subdivisions within the surahs that we're looking at here, between 50 and 114, that are meant to be read as nightly. I use the word visual, perhaps it's not quite the correct word, but portions of reading that form both they provide spiritual sustenance to the readers themselves, but to which outsiders are to be invited to make a decision, a determination on the basis of these readings, whether they are going to submit to God or not. That's what this is about, in a context of warning. This is what this book is about, honestly. So, to continue, additional context and linguistic support for the points found in this note will be gained by reading 74:18 through 25. I'm not going to go into that now, but if you go to this note that I've just read from, It's just a matter of clicking a blue button and it'll take you to that, and then you can read those notes. So let's continue. If I go back and find where we are in this surah. It is a lot, isn't it? But I hope that it's going to be worth it. Let's just have a look here. So we sent it down on the night of determination. So we've done the first verse. And what will convey to thee what the night of determination is. Now here I'm just going to read, and because I can't just, riff on this subject. It has to be very specific. It is a very detailed subject, and for those who know my work, I do speak, I extemporize on quite a lot of subjects, but the whole purpose for this channel has been to direct the few that will do the work to the foundation for this work. And so, as I've said before, this channel isn't really my work isn't primarily about the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is just the front end to the actual work. So, and what will convey to thee what the night of determination is? So the formulation here is telling: the convention and what will convey to thee always indicate something which Muhammad is not expected to understand, and for which there follows an explanation. And I list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 places where precisely this happens. I've been through them all. If you looked at my last video, I've been through the Qur'an many tens of thousands of times. These passes, it's been an iterative process. I found all of these places where it happens, and you can check them really easily and see, yes, that's precisely what happens. And such is the case here at 97.2. The Qur'an presents a Muhammad ignorant of the meaning of Layl al-Qadr. He doesn't know what it means. This isn't insulting. This is what the Qur'an shows us. A point which contrasts starkly with the hadith literature which ascribes to Muhammad here, as so often, knowledge the Qur'an denies him. And they'll say, well, you don't respect the Qur'an, you don't respect, disrespecting the messenger, disrespecting the prophet. It's not disrespecting, it's where is more respect expressed in denying the only thing we know that he brought for sure, which is the Qur'an, or in following something that he didn't bring. He never saw. Muhammad never put his seal to any of the hadith. He never read them. He never met any of the people who supposedly put them all together. The so-called compilers of this stuff, all of whom actually were Persians. This certainly is true. It's a very, to my mind, a convoluted, somewhat obtuse understanding of the word respect. The hadith literature has Muslims looking for a special night in the hopes of gaining some uncommon access to God, who, on the correct night, so it is claimed, determines all affairs for the year ahead. Such exegesis supplies superficial but Quranically unfounded support to those who are temperamentally inclined to abdicate personal responsibility so to do. So, and I let's relate to previous experiences. There's something I've discovered about religions in general, and by religions I really mean the kind of constructed power matrices which make it very easy for intelligent men to control and manipulate the masses. That's what when I'm using the word religion in this sense, is what I mean. Because I'm not against religion, in the sense of deen, absolutely not. But what we're talking about here is a parody. It's when you get into things like Christmas, Father Christmas, and stuff like that. This is what I'm talking about. And we have this in various iterations of, especially, well, not even especially, but Protestant Christianity and so on. So, And what I've experienced personally, how few people will do the work. Basically, I still get emails on a regular basis. Oh yeah, but please, just please tell me how to do this. Just tell me how to do that. Just tell me this. Just tell me that. This is the problem, and I agree that there is naturally a caste of men who are temperamentally and intellectually capable and inclined to do this sort of work. I just don't believe this work is being done. I think that it's all suborned to material requirements, certainly now, and that's just my view on it. And I'm not just talking about this so-called Islamic religion. It's certainly the case in what passes for religion in the Christian world. Thus, they can refuse to correlate the results of their lives with their actions and look rather for benefit to particular times, instead of to the observation of the extant and operative laws of God, which practice is properly regarded as a form of polytheism. I think I'll read that bit again because it's interesting, isn't it? Thus, they can refuse to correlate the results of their lives with their actions. It's socialism, isn't it? It's irresponsibility, lack of accountability, which we've got. And look at the West now with its woke culture and all of this. No one's responsible for anything. No discussion of actual quality of somebody deserving because they work really hard. Well, I mean, there are bits, I suppose, in sports, but we're supposed to believe that everyone's opinion matters and everyone's equally intelligent and equally productive or whatever it is, which is complete nonsense. Thus, they can refuse to correlate the results of their lives with their actions. It sounds like The Guardian, doesn't it? Or The Independent, and look rather for benefit to particular times. I'm waiting for the special night. Doesn't matter what I did over the year. Doesn't matter. I can just kind of pray at the right time, and all of that's forgiven. Great. Instead of to the observation of the extant and operative laws of God, which practice is properly regarded as a form of polytheism. Okay, I think we've kind of done that bit. Let's get back to our good friend, the actual Surah. And what will convey to thee what the night of determination is? The night of determination is better than 1,000 months. All right. Arabic, shahr, moon or month. 1,000 months, interestingly, is equal to just over 83 solar years. A long life by any reckoning. Thus, the night of determination, is better than a long life. And as the second clause of 97.4 shows, no matter how spent, we'll get to that in a minute. I just want to touch on this because 84 years is a full life. In the post-deluge dispensation, at least, people lived a lot longer than that previously. But in our time, 84 years solar years is a very full life. But what it says here is that the night of determination is better than that. And also, what I'd like to, we'll get into it in the next bit. But it's actually better. It's superior to that. No matter what you attain, no matter what you get in this life, the night of determination, in your case, how you determine, and how is determined about you, but how you determine what your response is to this warning, that's what's important. The angels and the Spirit descend therein by the leave of their Lord of every sort of affair. Now, before I just get into the details of this, we should see that I've passed this in a certain way, because quite clearly what preceded is continued by every sort of affair. So let's just leave out the middle bit. The night of determination is better than 1,000 months of every sort of affair, of no matter what kind of affair, no matter how lived. 1,000 months equaling around 83, 84 years. What we have is an interpolated phrase that is meant to be read as an aside. Okay, this is something we find repeatedly through the Qur'an. I'm not the only person to recognize this. It's just a matter of saying where it's the only sensible understanding of what's going on. Now, let's continue with the notes. Having properly understood and passed the rest of the chapter, the present clause falls naturally into a nested parenthetical statement. Thus, on, quote, the night of determination, end quote, it is by the leave of thy Lord, i.e. by the leave of the Lord of those who make the determination, or possibly the Lord of the spirits and of the angels and the spirit themselves. Thus it is by the leave of thy Lord that the angels and the spirit descend, and not because one happened rightly to guess at and observe a particular night, one whose expectation is drawn from an entirely different literature, and whose characteristics require, in order for such a phenomenon to seem to be discerned within the Qur'an, the mangling of Arabic usage in the local context out of all alignment with those senses established throughout the corpus, i.e. throughout the broader text. Okay, to continue. Of every sort of affair. So I'm just going to read the whole of it. The night of determination is better than 1,000 months. The angels and the spirit descend therein by the leave of their Lord, of every sort of affair. The translators render min kulli here as, well, they have various ways of doing this. Nowhere in the remaining 44 instances of min kulli in the Qur'an do we find anything close to such a value, and I know because I've been through them all. The task in hand is not to try to bend the Qur'an to what one's favourite school of Islam has constructed on the basis of the hadith, but to seek coherence and sense within the integrity of the Qur'an's own fabric. On such a basis, min kulli can only mean every sort of every, among every, or from among every. And amr means command, matter, or affair. By treating the phrase above as a nested statement, which we've already looked at, and min kulli in accordance with its commonest pantextual value, the sense becomes the night of determination is better than 1,000 months of every sort of affair. The import of the second part of this statement being no matter how lived, or of any type whatsoever. Okay. You see what happens when you actually use the Qur'an as its own reference point. This work, I'm certain, I've said this before, but I'm certain this has been done before. I don't think I'm the only person to have understood these sorts of points. I mean, if you think back, people who, in the early years of the Islamic dispensation, they memorized the Qur'an, they knew it inside out. If you read all kinds of famous people at that time, Al-Ghazali or whoever it is, I mean, when he's quoting the Qur'an, he just quotes the first few words because the assumption is you know the rest of it. And why would he put, the whole verse there? Any educated reader would know what follows that. So, I mean, I do agree there are certain benefits to having a computer, but not very many. I mean, the benefit is that you can very exactly do many passes through the text to derive data. But in terms of memory, in terms of assimilating, absorbing information, we're at a huge disadvantage now because people don't memorize. And even, to be honest, the people who do memorize the Qur'an, you can see they don't really, I can't speak to what goes on inside their hearts, but it seems to me to be quite a mechanical rather than any sort of deeply held process. Because and the reason why I say that is that what I've seen, I mean, maybe there is some sort of, hidden elite of, mystical Muslims somewhere who really get all this and just keep themselves quiet, living in the mountains somewhere. But from the people that you actually see, you can see what they do is they just who say that they've that they've memorized the Qur'an. They just seem rather just a bit like remind me a little bit of certain types of Protestant evangelicals who they've just got John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. See, there you are, that's the answer. There's no more argument. It's like that, except these poor fools have never memorized anything except a few very small verses or sections. Whereas, there still exists within the Islamic world the kind of idea that it's a good idea to memorize the Qur'an, but I don't see it really benefiting. It's bizarre how you could memorize something, and then I suppose it must be that at the same time they're attaching their minds to this other stuff, which prevents them, I'm only guessing here, that prevents them from really absorbing, prevents them from digesting. It seems that they're kind of swallowing packets of food wrapped in plastic, and that's what's preventing them from really digesting any of it. Anyway, that's not a hard and fast kind of doctrinal point with me. It's just something that I've observed. So, if we continue, the angels and the spirit descend therein by the leave of their Lord of every sort of affair, which reverts back to the night of determination. Peace, it is until the emergence of dawn. Now, peace, salam, means soundness, well-being. It's one sort of etymological group. Peace, peacefulness, that's another. Safety, security, that's another. Contextual comparison of all instances of salam as found here, i.e. without following modifiers such as, be unto you, etc. Outside the present one reveals this convention to possess the following applications. Now, I've listed all my sources here. If we just go back to there. Yeah, you can see here you have them all. What you have to do is go and have a look and just click those buttons if you want to check this, and you should. You can. So I list those verses, I don't know what there are, 10, 12, something like that. Reveals this convention to possess the following applications. 1, as a general greeting for persons either known or not known. 2, as a means of respectfully extricating oneself from interaction with those who are either ignorant or who reject faith. And 3, God's greeting to the believers, specifically upon their being received into the joys of what my grandmother would have called the fuller life. The first 2 applications are fully consonant with the present context as understood and expanded upon here. So, a general greeting for people either known or not known, or as a means of respectfully extricating, getting out of, removing oneself from interaction with those who are either ignorant or who reject faith. So it's either a greeting, a general greeting, or salam is a way of politely removing yourself or getting rid of people that don't respond. So the first 2 applications are fully consonant with the present context as understood and expanded here. A night in which people come, it is a night of determination. They can make their determinations vis-a-vis God and faith. That's what this is. This is in the context of, as I say, these surahs between 50 and 114, which is a form of witness, a form of, on the one hand, for the believers, it's a way of kind of fortifying themselves, but at the same time, it is something that warn thou by the Qur'an. That's what this is. It's not about guessing the right night so that God can just forgive you all of your sins that you're just on the basis of nothing. This isn't socialism. This is reality. This is cause and effect. The first 2 applications are fully consonant with the present context as understood and expounded upon here, and the third is aptly and beautifully prefigured, for which we'll see the next note. So let's continue. Peace, this is verse 5. Peace, it is until the emergence of dawn. And this is the last note here. It, here, feminine pronoun agreeing with night. Based on the totality of my investigations, the results of which comprise this translation and notes thereto, the collocation, the night of determination, is a function of what is identified in the broader work as the submission, as-sujud, i.e. that night vigil to which others are invited to hear the word of God, the chapters for which comprise a subset of the Qur'an, and of which subset the present chapter forms part of the closing section. i.e., and if you're going to want to get this, you do need to go through my work on the mysterious letters. But if you can't do that, then just go to the end and you'll see how between 50 and 114 is divided up into blocks. On the night of determination, men make their determinations. Some among those outside the fold of believers accept, and others reject. Meanwhile, believers themselves make their determinations concerning those to whom the words of God have been recited, whether they should be regarded as believers, rejectors, friends, or ones lost in ignorance. Understood as presented here and expounded in the supporting notes, this chapter forms an entirely natural precursor to the next, which we're going to be looking at next time, God willing. Now, I'm going to go back and we'll just read the surah again, and I'll leave you to form your determinations. We sent it down on the night of determination. And what will convey to thee what the night of determination is? The night of determination is better than 1,000 months. The angels and the Spirit descend therein by the leave of their Lord of every sort of affair, peace. It is until the emergence of dawn. That, in my considered opinion, is the meaning of this surah. I'm not presenting this in order to antagonize the traditionalist Muslim any further than I already have. But if we're going to say that the Qur'an is complete, that it's consistent, that it's from God and it's protected, then that's where we need to look for our definitions. As I said in the last talk, in my view, the hadithist or hadithans, days are numbered. There's no way out of it. He's not going to survive modernity. Modernity has no favourites. It may be slightly smiling upon him now because it's got its sights on people like me. But once they're done with my people, they'll come after him too. It has, as I say, it has no favourites. He's trying to protect himself. He's trying to... I see what he's doing. He's doing some fancy footwork. Thinks he can get around the wokeness brigade by, seeming... Well, first of all, by being... unpredictable and violent, and also using his kind of woke credits. But they're going to run out. And everything that they've done to the Protestants, everything they've done to the Catholics, look at Vatican II. Find out what Vatican II was about. That's what happens when you try to compromise. They're going to do to him as well. In fact, they already kind of are. I mean, what is a Muslim in the West now? It's just sort of a... like a badge, isn't it? It's like a sort of like a Manchester United scarf. It doesn't mean anything more than that, really. Not in effect, because in effect, the people in the West, the traditionalist Muslims, they're just materialists. That's what they actually are. I mean, it doesn't matter if you can. Again, going back to Laylatul Qadr, just layering on a bit of a sort of Islamic-like kind of flavour. It doesn't to Islamicized, if you can use that word. Just a materialist and selfish, solipsistic life is nonsense. I don't believe in that. I don't think most people who follow this channel believe in that. In fact, I don't think they really believe in it. As soon as they can really dump it, they certainly will. Anyway, that's what this means. If you want to corroborate, check, fact check all of this, I've made it as easy as possible. I did the work, but Brother Said Mirza's gone to the trouble of making this amazing resource. So do use it at reader.qur'anite.com, and you can, if you click down. In fact, I'll show you while I'm here because people miss this, and it's so good. Where are we? That one. Yeah, the way you use this is if you go on here, any verse, you click down. You've got Arabic grammar. You can copy the Arabic, send it to someone, copy the English, copy both, or just copy the link. If you copy the link, it'll send the link to somebody and it'll make that link into yellow so they know precisely which, it'll give them that verse, but that verse in context. And just so you know, I mean, if you click on Arabic grammar, it pulls up. I so wish this had existed before. So you can, if you click on this, for example, it'll give you every single example of where this exists in the Quran. There you are, bang, one button. It just gives you all of them. There you are, all the verses, every single verse. There it is, where you can find this. At the same time, going back here, you have the root letters. So, you know, whatever verb it is, lil. Okay, so you have the root. You can click on that, bang. Instantaneously, you'll have all of the different types. So you find, here you are, all of the roots. Then you've got all of the forms. And you can just get to this stuff so quickly. There you are. And lastly, just to show you, you've got the dictionaries. And if you just click on this, hold on, this thing's zooming in and out. If I just click on one of these, let's take the word lil. You click on that, it'll take you instantly to this really good resource, and it is an amazing resource. It really is. I'll just wait for this page to come up. For some reason, when I'm using this particular program, the internet goes really, really slowly. So here we are. It's one click, and there you are. You've got Hanswar, Layla. It's all there. Keep going down. You've got the supplement to Lane's lexicon, and then tons of other lexicons. This is one click, and you can get to any root in one click. If you only knew how long I spent with dictionaries and so on, and now it's made so easy. You can just get to whatever you want. But I will tell you, I don't think the internet's going to be here forever. I mean, some aspects of it, you know, will be, of course, as long as this system prevails. But if you haven't seen the writing on the wall with the wokeness agenda, then it's time to kind of, as they say, wake up and smell the coffee, because there's no one they're not going to come after. Anyone who stands in the way of this system is going to be labelled something, an ist or an ob of some kind, and or, you know, ite, and then they'll come after you and malign you and all of that. So if you want access to stuff, I would get dictionaries. I personally have Lane's Arabic lexicon, because it's, you know, very good, and I have a copy of Wers as well. But there are some, and I have a couple of Arabic dictionaries, like Arabic dictionaries. But that's just because I like paper, because you can't, you know, you can't sort of send it down the memory hole without actually burning books, you know, in the center of the square, as it were. Anyway, that's it. That's a full explanation, as much as I can give here, of this particular surah. I hope that it was of interest and of use to some people, and that's all for now. If you're listening on YouTube, you can download my full translation of the Qur'an and all other work free using the button in the top right hand corner, or buy the hard copy there at 10% less than on Amazon. You can download the audio from my YouTube videos to your mobile device using the links in the drop down below. I recommend meetquranites.com to connect with other Qur'an alone believers. Like if you like, comment if you have something constructive to say, and subscribe to get more each week. And use the link in the drop down below to donate if you would like, to help me keep doing this. And remember, this life is short, eternity is long. If you want good trees, plant good seeds.